Well, today's episode is going to be different. Now, normally when I do one of these reviews, I normally pick out I already know exactly what day of what events are taking place. For example, like Tuesday we have NXT and NWA, but if there's no NWA, I just follow it NXT and try to put in something before it, like a previous event, or something like Wednesday where we have, of course, Dynamite. But however, Mondays were one of those days where there was nothing available. But I decided, you know what? What the hell? Let's just review certain GCW events that I haven't seen yet. These two dates back all the way to April. Now, the first one is going to be I Can't Feel My Face, and the other is going to be Red Means Green. So they're both day to day, like a day apart from each other. They're like back to back, one on the 15th, one on the 16th of April. Of course, we got some news updates to share what's been going on in the world of pro wrestling, such as what events are being announced, who's being booked, what matches will be set to take place, any upcoming event, like upcoming stuff, like let's say debuts and all that other stuff. So we'll be doing all of that. So let's get ready for another episode of the Leaded Wrestle Zone.
Are you ready? Get up, get up! 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 Get up, get up!
Welcome everybody to the Leaded Wrestle Zone, all things that is pro wrestling with AEW, NXT, New Japan Pro Wrestling, Impact Wrestling, the National Wrestling Alliance, various promotions, wrestlers, matches, and championships. I am your host, Gerard here. So, now as I said before, normally I try not to go back to some events that have go a little further, but since nothing was happening on Monday, I decided, what the hell, let's just do this one. Um, we have two GCW events, but the first one we're going to do is GCW I Can't Feel My Face. Kind of interesting title for a show, but nonetheless. Opening up our match is, of course, everybody's favorite dad, Dan the Dad, taking on the most despicable person in GCW, Blake Christian. Now, I have to say the match was pretty interesting because Dan the Dad, he's always been a standout wrestler. Now, people can say the way he is, but I always talk about how unique wrestlers can be. Now, you look at Blake Christian, he is the guy who we all stood behind, and now he's like all cocky because he is determined to make it a top at any means necessary, even if he has to cheat his way through. But, however, in this particular match, it was, of course, Blake Christian with the stomp to put away Dan the Dad. And, of course, Kaki, as always, who has the opportunity. But this is before he actually defeated Masha Slamovich. So that's how he rolls. Our next match, we have a pound for pound type of match, a bit of a hoss fight. Shane Taylor, the Iron Demon, versus the heavyweight hustle, Calvin Tegman. I have to say, pretty much biased. I wasn't too 100% sure about this because they're both big wrestlers, they're both agile for a bit, that whole thing. But normally I would see when Calvin Tankman applied like the bat fist or the tank driver, but it was but it was a strong elbow into the face of Shane Mercer that put away by Calvin Tankman to Shane Mercer. That ended right there. 1, 2, 3. It's done. Next up, we got Shaza McKenzie taking on the most a-hole on AGCW, Tony Deppen. Now you know Tony Deppen, who has always been an a-hole the entire time. So this was going to be a very interesting, but I cannot recall if he's ever faced a female wrestler before. I don't know if you guys know anything about that, but nonetheless, He actually got away with it with a pinfall with the tights onto McKenzie and got away with it with a smirk smile. Next up, we have the Bounty Hunter, Brian Keith, taking on, of course, Shigehiro Iri. I have to say it was a pretty good match. Now, um, I'm a fan of Erie. I've always have been. First time I ever saw him was on DDT, and then when he was going all over the world, that kind of changed things for me to appreciate the kind of wrestler he is. But he's facing a guy who's always up to the task to take on the bigger challenge. But I love it. It was a good match, but unfortunately, it was a big lariat by Erie to Brian Keith, and boom, 1, 2, 3, done right there. Next up, we have a trios match. Team number one, we have Thrusty, consisting of Dark Sheik, Alley Catch, and Effie to take on Jimmy Lloyd and members of the Second Gear crew, Manders, and of course, Mans Warner. Now, you know this type of match is going to be a ball breaker match because we've seen the Second Gear crew, how they operate. They always try to bring out the toys underneath. I mean, we're talking about tables, tables, chairs, doors, whatever they can use. But you know how that goes. But in this case, it was Dark Sheik with the leg drop onto Jimmy Lloyd, and boom, it was over right from there. Next up, we have Bang Bros, August Matthews, Davey Bang taking on Jake Landers and Kevin Lee Davidson. Now, I don't know who these other two guys are, but I had a feeling that this match was definitely going to go straight to the Bang Bros because they're well known and they're also well established. So, but it was pretty interesting. But one thing they had the more obstacle is one of the opponents named Kevin Lee Davidson. He's a big dude. Like, I cannot compare it to the size of Sam Stackhouse, but he's almost right there. But he was much of the bigger threat. So that ended right there for them, for Bang Bros to pick up the win. Now, our next match is a GCW World title. Masha defends it against Cold Roderick. You know this match was going to be very interesting. But however, Blake Christian, who has an opportunity to cash in a chance for a title shot, was watching. But because of his presence, it had Masha Slammers to put away Cold Roderick with the choke hold. The same kind of chokehold that allowed her to defeat Nick Gage. Now our next match is a 3-on-2 match. We have Gringo Loco and Commander taking on Myron Reed and the East West Express, Nick Wayne and Jordan Oliver. Now, I know what you guys are gonna think. Normally the numbers games play, and of course it did, but there was a lot of good high spots in this particular match. But and the way this ended was with a double cloud cutter onto Gringo Loco, but it was Nick Wayne who picked up the win by pinning Gringo, and 1, 2, 3, it was done. Just like that. Our next match, we have Los Macizos, 3-time GCW Tag Team Champions, taking on another set of tag team, who also former tag team champions, the Rejects, Reed and John Wayne Murdoch. Now, this match is going to be also another ball breaker with a lot of, how they say, fuckery toys that they have. I mean, we're talking about anything that will make you bleed. But the Southern Destroyer was the answer to everything for the Rejects to put away Miedo Extremo. But it was John Wayne Murdoch, the Duke, that actually made the pin, and it was over right from there. So I think that's pretty much it for this GCW show. So let's move on with which one we're doing again? Oh yeah, red means green, I think. Okay, another GCW show. Red means green. This is right after I Can't Feel My Face. In our opening match, we have Axton Ray and Gringo Loco taking on the Bang Bros, August Matthews and Davey Bang. I have to say it was a pretty good match. Now, There were certain times I've seen Axton Ray, what he can do in the ring, especially when it comes to tag team partners. I think I like when he was teaming with the Iron Demon, Shane Mercer, but him with Gringo, it was a lot more different in this reality. But what I like how this match ended, they both each did a power bomb in order to put away the Bang Bros. I thought that was amazing how they ended it in simultaneously, just like that. Next up, we got Calvin Tankman taking on Brian Keith. So this is going to be a tough challenge because we know Brian Keith, he's always up to the task. He's always going to do what he takes to pick up a win. And that's what he does. He's a bounty hunter. But he picked up a very interesting win when he rolled up Calvin Tankman to pick up the win. I did not anticipate that one, but I'm sure neither did Tankman. But it is what it is. It ended just like that. Next up, we have Doug Gilbert and Tommy Rich, veterans of in pro wrestling. They actually had no clue who Bussy was, so that's their opponents. They're facing Alec Hatch and Effie. But of course, after this match, I'm sure Rich and Gilbert will remember who they are after this. But it was, of course, a pump knee by Effie to Tommy Rich that ended it right there. So they probably now know who Bussy really is. Next up, we have Myron Reed taking on Blake Christian. Now, you know that this match will be a very interesting one because with Blake Christian's cockiness, always figure out a way to get away with all his matches, he was able to apply the stomp to put away Myron Reed. Now, the leader of the MDK, what's his name? Nick Gage shows up to do a little promo. So the promo didn't last, of course, didn't last long because we had the next match. We have Los Macizos taking on Shane Mercer and Jimmy Lloyd. But you know that this match, of course, when it comes to Los Macizos, they're gonna bring all kinds of what into the ring. We're talking about light tubes, tables, uh, chairs, whatever it takes to make someone bleed. That's always been who they are, and I think it worked until they apply like they what's the name? Miedo Extremo had Mercer right on. I think it was Mercer on his shoulders until, of course, Cyclops applied like a somewhat of a lariat, or he just clothesline onto the light tubes in the bottom, right on his back. 1, 2, 3. It was done. Next up, we got a four-way match: Kota Hernandez, Jeffrey John, Josh Crane, and Hillbilly Jet. Now, I have seen Kota Hernandez and Jeffrey John before. The other two, no. But Hillbilly Jet is a big dude, so he most likely is the much common thread in this particular match. So you probably would think that everybody else will definitely try to. Well, they tried, but in this case, it was, of course, I don't know if it was a swanton bomb that Hillbilly Jet did, but he picked up the win onto Jeffrey John, and it was ended just like that. Next up, we got the second gear crew, Manders and Werner Mance, teaming with Dark Sheik, taking on Team Rock with Billy Starks, Cold Roderick, and of course, coming out of retirement for just one night, Billy Rock. And he's also Billy Rock has now been foretold by the commentators that Billy Rock is in fact the mentor of Mance Warner. I thought this match was going to be a lot interesting because Billy Rock, people were like cheering for Billy Rock from what I can see, and I thought it was fantastic. But in this case, it was a knee strike by Mance Warner to Billy Rock, and that ended right there. However, at the end of the match during the promo, Mance Warner gave a very heartwarming speech about Billy Rock, the kind of guy he is, the kind of teacher he is, and I think that's really touched everybody, especially Billy Rock, knowing that now his student is moving on to good things. So I have to say, really great promo right there. Next up, we have Tony Deppen, the a-hole, taking on Shigehiro Iri. I have to say, good match. Now, you know that Tony Deppen will definitely do whatever it takes to pick up a win. That's always been who he is. But You know, Erie, he will not give up no matter what Tony Deppen does. But it took only a lariat, maybe 3 times, to put away Blake Christian, giving him the win. Now, our main event is for the GCW tag team titles. We have the Rejects, Reed Bentley and John Wayne Murdoch, taking on the East West Express, Jordan Oliver and Nick Wayne. Now, you know this match is going to be crazy, so intense, and I thought it was going to be great. I was more worried that the Rejects were going to bring out the effery around to hurt the East West Express, but it took only a double cloud cutter onto John Wayne Murdoch, but it was it was Jordan Oliver to pick up the win to retain the title. So I thought great match right there. So I think that's it for our reviews for now. So let's move on with some news updates. Okay, welcome to our news updates. So this is what we have. Now, a while ago I did mention that DDT Pro Wrestling has announced that a former WWE superstar was going to make his debut, and that superstar was Matt Cardona. Well, that doesn't end there. Around the same time as Matt Cardona will be debuting next month in DDT, it was announced by DDT that Samurai del Sol, or as you guys know him in WWE, Kalisto, will be making his debut in July. However, a month later, in August, another former WWE superstar will be making his debut, but I don't know why they're announcing him, because as you know, I've been seeing this guy in All Japan Pro Wrestling. I'm talking about Yoshitatsu. He'll be making his debut in the promotion on the 20th. Now, I'm not of August. I'm not sure if he's having issues in All Japan, but we'll see what happens down the line. Now, as you all know, a brand new promotion has started up recently called Spark Joshi Puroresu of America. Well, they had a very highly successful show at the Ignite East in Newark, New Jersey. They did crown the first ever Spark Joshi World Champion, and that champion is none other than the Pink Striker, Miyu Yamashita. Now, however, it was announced later that Miyu Yamashita was booked for the other Ignite show, West, that is going to take place in West Covina, LA, here in California. She'll be defending the title against Delilah Doom, a well-known SoCal wrestler from here, which I'm from. But apparently, they're going to have 2 championship matches for this one. For the Spark show on the Ignite West, there's going to be the Spark Joshi Pacific Championship, and that's going to be determined between Ram Kaicho and Saki. Now, I want to be honest with everybody. I hope Saki wins because she's one of my absolute favorites to watch. Now, I did not mention this did not know about this one. I could have put this on the Unagi Sayaka Watch episode recently, but however, it did not. I probably will do that again later. Now, as you know, Unagi will be facing the new girl named Riara, who in fact has recently joined Ganbare Pro and Ganbare Yoshi. However, she'll be facing next month Unagi Sayaka and Otawar Gymnasium. However, she's going to give her more something to. Apparently, she said that she's going to have an opponent that will be facing her later on by the end of this month on June 30th. Now, the name of this opponent is still unclear. This referred as X, so don't know who that could be. But they also announced for that particular show, Arukaze and Yuri will be teaming up to take on Kaho Matsushita and Yoshiko Hasegawa. Now, as you know, a brand new promotion has announced they already made 4 wrestlers that will be debuting. Well, this one, I don't know how you guys are going to react. Kitsune Women's Wrestling, that will have the show on the 22nd of October, has announced that Deathmatch Queen Risa Sarah will be in LA for that particular show. So if you guys haven't heard about this, go check it out. Now, some interesting developments coming in from WWE recently. As you may have or may not have heard, it was reported that exclusive TV rights were negotiating between Fox and of course NBC towards WWE. Apparently, they couldn't reach. They ended their everything with them without a new deal. But however, well, I know there's been some issues that both the networks had towards WWE in the past, so that was very interesting. However, they did. Disney announced that they have interest in having TV rights with them. That's kind of interesting to hear, but we don't know officially if it's going to happen or not. But I'll keep a prize on this one as much as possible. Now, if you guys are familiarized with this promotion that's run by Booker T called Reality of Wrestling, that also serves as a wrestling school, it was announced that NXT star Trick Williams will be making his debut and participating at one of their events that takes place on the 15th of July. Now, some interesting changes have developed in a Deadlock Pro Wrestling for Tag Festival. Now, the Magical Sugar Rabbits were supposed to be in a non-tournament event due to the situation with Yuka Sakazaki being injured. She's not medically cleared. However, she says she will be there at the event, but it was announced by her replacement is none other than Emi Sakura. So Emi Sakura will be teaming with Mizuki, who is in fact one of her students. So that's going to be interesting to see. Their opponent is none other than the Pink Striker Miyu Yamashita, who replaced Hyan, and her partner is, of course, Vert Vixen. Now, updates for the Ride or Die show by GCW on the 28th of June. We're going to have Commander versus Jordan Oliver. The West Coast Pro event Cruel Summer that takes place on the 8th of July. It was announced that Jeff Cobb will be taking on Alpha Zoe. RevPro has announced for their event on the 18th of June, Will Ospreay will be making his way. However, Will Ospreay has posted this on his Twitter page saying that he's going to address the fan base with the situation that took place with Dan Maloney. Now, those who don't remember what happened, Dan Maloney turned his back on the United Empire and aligned himself with, of course, the Bullet Club. So basically, he wants to address it, but I wouldn't be surprised if Dan Maloney attacked him out of the blue. Now, finally, this one is a very interesting one that just came out. AEW has announced that they terminated or fired BJ Whitmer. Now, Whitmer has served as an executive producer with AEW, but prior before that, he was a wrestler working with Ring of Honor. Now, the reasons behind his fire is like any other type of termination that gives them probable cause. Apparently, he was arrested for domestic violence. So, not much of detail has explained, but it was reported by Fightful Select that AEW has reached out to the victim of this domestic violence, give the full support. So that's pretty much it. So basically, BJ Whitmer is out. He is no longer with the company. Not much information has been told about what really took place, but that's all we know. And I think that's pretty much it right now with all of our news updates. I believe it's time to call it a day. Well, I hope everybody enjoys this episode. I'm sorry that I had to review these two shows, which I know is 2 months old, but there was nothing available. But I'll try to do something the next time. Um, I think for Tuesday Wrestling we have, of course, NXT. Now I'm not sure about the NWA because last time we had the more of the highlights of what happened at the Crockett Cup. So we'll see what happens then. If there is no NWA, I'll think of something else that would replace it. So we'll see what happens until then. But for now, I will see you guys in the next DWZ time. Same DWZ channel. I must bid all of you adieu. So, goodbye. Mwah. And have a nice day. Bang.